Oh, Lord. Hey guys, it's Lasley. And no, your eyes are not deceiving you. I am doing a commentary on a Sonic the Hedgehog video game. And I never thought that the first Sonic game that I would be doing a commentary on the new channel would be Sonic Heroes, of all of them. But, it's not because it's a bad game. In fact, I think this game gets a lot more hate than it deserves. It's just one of those games that can be very tedious to play until the very end. And I'm going to let you know this ahead of time. I'm only doing one story, and then I'm going to do the last story as its own part. And that is why this is only going to be a 4-part mini-series, I guess you could say. And honestly, guys, it was either this or nothing. Because trying to do a commentary on this game, on all of the stories, and the final boss, yeah, that wasn't gonna happen. I'm sorry, but at the very least, I was willing to do a commentary for one of the stories, and the story I chose is Team Rose's story. Why did I choose Team Rose? Because, truth be told, and this might be weird for you to hear, but Team Rose is, in my honest opinion, the story mode in Sonic Heroes that best encapsulates the spirit of the Sonic the Hedgehog series. I feel like it's all about going fast and trying to beat the levels as fast as you can, and Team Rose is the shortest story. Has the shortest levels. So, even though there is a story mode where you play as the actual Sonic the Hedgehog, and he's teamed up with Tails and Knuckles, more on that later, that's actually kind of in the middle in terms of length. It's not the shortest, but it's also not the longest story mode. The longest one is actually Team Dark, which would be the one with Shadow, as well as Rouge and Omega, the robot that looks suspiciously like Gamma from Sonic Adventure, but totally not, even though they have the same voice actor. That's its own can of worms that I may or may not go into as we continue with this commentary, but yeah, it was either I do this or I do nothing. Sorry to say. And again, Team Rose is the shortest story. This is only going to be 3 parts for the Team Rose portion. And then the last story will be its own part that's actually not very long, and surprisingly about a third of it, maybe half of it, is like cutscenes. So I'm probably going to be talking over some of those cutscenes like I did earlier with the intro cutscene. So going back to that, here we have Team Rose. The main character in here is Amy Rose, who was introduced in Sonic CD. A Sonic game that was probably not played by very many people because it was released on an obscure Sega Genesis add-on device called the Sega CD. It was re-released later on mobile phones and stuff, but it was never going to be as popular as the main 3 games. I'm sure it has its fans though, and I'm sure they'll try to argue about it online and everything, because the Sonic fan base is a very enthusiastic fan base I come to find over the years. It's not really one that I find myself agreeing with a lot of the time. That said, I have still managed to find some amusement and enjoyment from quite a few Sonic games, which is why I don't hate the series, but at the same time, anytime I think about the fan base and how they seem to overly criticize every game that comes out for no real reason, to a level that I don't really see with other series. The closest examples I can think of is like maybe Pokemon or something like that, where, I mean, Pokemon, every new set of Pokemon games is gonna have people complaining about it, but I don't know, it's just something about the Sonic the Hedgehog fan base in particular. I don't know what it is. I've tried to understand what it is over the years, but I can't for the life of me figure out why there are people that are so overly obsessed with an anthropomorphic blue hedgehog that just happens to run really fast and has other animal friends that usually also run pretty fast as well. Fun fact, Knuckles is actually faster than Sonic in Sonic Adventure 2, which is a game on the backlog for commentaries for those people wanting to know. That and the original adventure. As you can see, my history with the Sonic series is mostly with the early 3D games, as well as a few of the later ones. And yes, I've played most of the newer ones. I believe the only one I have yet to actually touch at all in any capacity is Sonic Forces. And based on what I've seen versus what people say about it, yeah. I've even played a little bit of the infamous Sonic the Hedgehog 2006. That game deserves all of the criticism it gets. It really does, but here we have Sonic Heroes, you know, and I see a lot of people try to argue that this game is actually worse than Sonic the Hedgehog 2006. And I ask those of you watching this gameplay right now, does this game look anywhere near as buggy or messy as Sonic the Hedgehog 2006 does? Watch this gameplay and then look up gameplay of Sonic the Hedgehog 2006. And seriously try to post a comment arguing about Sonic Heroes being an inferior game to Sonic 06 because of that. Now, there's a difference between people wanting to like a game more than another game regardless of its quality. That is an argument that I can fully understand. Like, for example, Shadow the Hedgehog is a game I see a lot of hatred for, and a lot of people say it's like the next worst Sonic game after Sonic 06. And to me, it's kind of a Mega Man X6 kind of situation, because to me, Shadow the Hedgehog plays like Sonic Heroes without the team gimmick, and it actually continues more off of Sonic Adventure 2's story than Sonic Heroes does, which at best, you know, briefly references it. But Shadow the Hedgehog is kind of a slippery slope sometimes, and it's also kind of doubles down on the frustrating aspect of Sonic Heroes where you have to complete the game multiple times to get the true ending. I mean, yeah, you do that 4 times in Sonic Heroes to get to the last story, but in Shadow the Hedgehog you have to beat the game 10 times to get to the last story. But the thing is, it probably doesn't take as much time to do 10 playthroughs of Shadow the Hedgehog versus doing 4 playthroughs of Sonic Heroes. That, and you have to get the Chaos Emeralds too. You have to get 7 Chaos Emeralds, 1 in each stage. Thankfully you can spread them out between each of the four teams, but still, it's quite the frustrating time. But it's not like it's a bad game because of that, it's just a tedious process to get to the last story compared to the adventure games at least. Like the next, if I was comparing this to the adventure games, the next most tedious one to get to the last story on would probably be Adventure 1, just because you have to beat the game with 6 characters. But that still doesn't seem to take as long. It's also not quite as repetitive because, yeah, you go through some of the same stages, but you're playing as completely different characters. So that definitely helped. With Sonic Heroes, you're gonna go through the exact same set of 7 stages with 2 acts in each of them. And the same boss battles too, for the most part. With the only difference being sometimes you'll have to fight one of the other teams. And those might be different depending on the team you play as, but other than that, it's pretty much 90% identical. And then some of the teams will have levels that are longer or shorter. Team Rose is the shortest, and Team Dark is the longest, like I mentioned earlier. You have Team Sonic that's somewhere in the middle, and you know, I would say if one playthrough of Team Sonic in Sonic Heroes is roughly as long as Sonic's playthrough in Sonic Adventure 1, which is a decent length, I think, like a couple hours. Team Rose is like even shorter than that. This playthrough is only, without the last story factored in, this Team Rose playthrough that I edited together is only like an hour. I kid you not. The Team Sonic is like 2 to 3 hours. Same with the Sonic story in Adventure 1. And, oh, why'd I only get a B rank for that? Nah, B for Big the Cat, I guess. You know, funny thing about Big the Cat is, people didn't like his gameplay in Adventure 1, but as far as Big the Cat as a character goes, I mean, I think he's fine. He really lightens the mood from some of the seriousness that the series can have at times. Sometimes to an extreme amount. Adventure 1 was never really that crazy about the edge factor, as some people call it, and Sonic Heroes definitely doesn't have it. It probably has it more than Adventure 1, at least, but not anywhere near as much as Adventure 2, or especially Shadow the Hedgehog, which is like the extreme, the extreme end of the spectrum there. And going back to my argument about Sonic Heroes' quality, You know, when I see people talk about trying to argue that Sonic Heroes is an inferior game to Sonic 06 and is buggier, I think about, I'm thinking like, oh, did they play the same game that I played? Because, yeah, it doesn't match up. Then I remembered that Sonic Heroes was the first Sonic the Hedgehog game to be released on multiple consoles at the same time. So here's a little bit of a fun fact for some of you younger people out there. Sega, the company that makes Sonic the Hedgehog, used to make their own consoles. I mentioned one earlier, the Sega Genesis, and they made Sega Saturn, something called the Sega Saturn. Even some of us older players don't really know or aren't familiar with it because it's a really obscure system. The Sega Dreamcast is arguably less obscure than the Saturn, but it still didn't really have a very long shelf life, and as a result, it was the last console that Sega ever made, and they were pretty much third party from then on out. And Sonic Heroes was the first, basically the statement of that. But before Sonic Heroes was released, Sonic was kind of exclusive to Nintendo for a couple years, actually. It started with Sonic Adventure 2 getting ported to GameCube as Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. That was exclusive for a long time until it got ported to the HD consoles in the next generation, PS3, Xbox 360, etc. Sonic Adventure 1 was released on GameCube as well, like a year later. We also received something called the Sonic Mega Collection, which was basically every Sonic-related Genesis game on one GameCube disc, but that got re-released on PS2 and Xbox later on as well, after Sonic Heroes. So, yeah, the Sonic releases on GameCube were pretty dang good before the multi-platform stuff started. And some would argue that it was around that time when Sonic maybe started to decline in quality a little bit. I will admit that Sonic Heroes is not really a huge decline in quality from the adventure games, but it's definitely kind of a signal flare of what's to come afterwards. Because while I don't hate Shadow the Hedgehog, it's definitely in a Mega Man X6 situation. But possibly even less so because that game came out when I was like 14 years old. So the nostalgia factor I have for Shadow the Hedgehog is not that great, honestly. Not enough for me to overlook its flaws. I can't even overlook all of the flaws of Mega Man X6, which is, I mean, there are Mega Man X games I like a lot more than X6. But still, I find that the game gets more hate than it deserves compared to another one in the series, Mega Man X7. It's a similar situation here, where I definitely feel like Sonic 06 is the inferior game. And I mean, that one is at least backed up by the fact you can just look at the game. And you can see that Sonic Heroes is not as glitchy. But again, going back to the multi-platform thing, I'm talking about the GameCube version of Sonic Heroes. And now that I think about it, the PS2 version of Sonic Heroes actually sold more in Europe, which is a country that Sonic the Hedgehog is pretty popular in. Same with the PlayStation, actually. The PlayStation, I think, was more popular than Nintendo in Europe for quite a while, from what I've read and what I've heard about, anyway. But, yeah, you kind of put those two together, and it would make sense that Sonic Heroes sold the best on PS2 there. And I'm thinking maybe that's a factor, because actually the PS2 version of Sonic Heroes is worse. It's a worse performing game than the GameCube version, and the Xbox version as well. The Xbox version is pretty much the same as the GameCube one, except I think it actually supports higher resolutions. Maybe, don't quote me on that. But in that, it's pretty much identical technical-wise. But the PS2, the PlayStation 2, was actually a weaker system than the GameCube or the Xbox. So when they ported Sonic Heroes to it, they had to make some compromises. I believe the compromises include needing to make the game run at half the frame rate. I think there were some minor graphical differences too, like some character shadows not showing up or something like that. And there's definitely other stuff too that I remember reading about, but I never really played the PS2 version because I never really needed to. I barely even dabbled with the Xbox version for a little bit. Just play this on GameCube, especially because you can actually play GameCube discs on a Wii, and I'm pretty sure most people still have a Wii laying around somewhere. Especially the one that plays GameCube games. That one is a really handy game console even nowadays. There's a lot of games on between Wii and GameCube that aren't available on newer hardware, so yeah, I'm kind of going a little off topic, but I do recommend you guys look into that, especially if you can find it cheap, which chances are you probably can. Don't worry about getting a Wii U though, just get a Wii that plays GameCube games, and whatever GameCube and Wii games you want to play that aren't available on Switch or whatever, yeah, go for it, and you'll be surprised at how affordable it is. But yeah, I feel like the judgment on Sonic Heroes has become tainted as a result of the PS2 version kind of superseding the GameCube version in terms of popularity at some point. Definitely not at first, but definitely after a point. And, you know, people are starting, even now, people are starting to look back on the adventure games and try to argue that they're bad games too, and that they're just as bad as Sonic 06. And I'm like, no, even some of the later ports of Adventure 1, yeah, they actually have more bugs and glitches than the original Dreamcast version, but still nowhere near being as messed up as Sonic 06. I mean, how can you seriously argue this? Again, there do seem to be some people that unironically like Sonic the Hedgehog 2006. And I'm saying, it's fine if you like the game, but don't delude yourself into thinking that it's a well-made game. It's definitely not. And there are a lot of people arguing that it's not. I mean, I'm just saying, that was something that always kind of rubbed me the wrong way with Sonic Heroes, with the way people talk about Sonic Heroes. And I'm not even that crazy about this game. I have quite a few complaints about this game. Like, again, the fact you have to beat the game 4 times to get to the last story and get all the Chaos Emeralds. But, I mean, honestly, that's like really the only thing that really gets under my skin. It's a pretty big one, but still. I mean, the gameplay is fine. The team gimmick is definitely unnecessary, but it's not really that bad because, you know, switching characters is so efficient. Anyway, I'm gonna take a little break because we got a cutscene coming up, and it's kind of hilarious, I guess. So enjoy.
Gotcha, my darling Sonic.
Amy, what are you doing here?
Sonic, this time there's no way out of marrying me.
So yeah, we run into Team Sonic. This is what I was talking about earlier. Depending on the team you play as, you run into other teams and you fight against them throughout the story. But if you play as Team Sonic, you'll run into Team Rose, etc., etc. So keep that in mind. But there's not really a lot of variety in the rival fights because you already kind of know what's going to happen. And there's going to be another cutscene coming up right before the next level starts that I am choosing not to talk about.
Oh, I can't believe he did that just so he could get away. Mr. Sonic must be really... Really? What? Nothing. Now I know what to do. Find Eggman and I'll find my Sonic. You all ready? This city reminds me of Casinopolis.
Can't have a Sonic the Hedgehog game without an obligatory casino level. Although now that I think about it, did Sonic Adventure 2 have a casino level? I don't recall it having one. I know Sonic Adventure 1 did, but I can't recall Sonic Adventure 2 having a casino level. So it's possible we may have an exception. Even Shadow the Hedgehog had like a carnival level. It was kind of weird, but it had one. Yeah, wait, hold on. No. If there was one, people can remind me, but I don't think that. I think that was actually something that slipped through the cracks. Sonic Adventure 2. They had to stick to their very dark and serious story. Please understand. But yeah, the thing about casino levels in Sonic the Hedgehog games is that they're usually a pretty good opportunity to grind some rings. Well, maybe grind isn't the right term. Farm might be a more accurate term. Every 100 rings gets you an extra life, so not the worst time sink in the world. But, you know, this is a Sonic game, we want to go fast. Even if we have to do some editing here and there to make it go even faster. But, it is what it is. But, yeah, the thing about Team Rose is that some of their individual acts are so much shorter than even Team Sonic's that it's kind of crazy. And then you'll still have 1 or 2 levels with Team Rose that are still almost comparable in length to a Team Sonic level, which is, it's interesting. But overall, I feel like if you wanted to do a speedrun of one of the stories of this game, you do Team Rose. It's the shortest one. Same thing with suggesting you do 0 over X, Mega Man X4, which I just finished the commentary for. I just did a Mega Man game and I'm doing a Sonic game, so... I don't know, some people kind of consider these series sort of related. I don't really necessarily, but... I mean, that both game series do involve a main character whose primary color is blue, but other than that, I mean, what do they have in common, really? Oh, they're both in Smash Brothers lately? Well, yeah, that's actually pretty cool. Anyway, I think we're coming up to the end of the level here in a bit. Next time we'll be finishing off the casino set of levels with Team Rose, and we're going to be doing some more levels. See you guys next time. Try to have some fun and don't take Sonic the Hedgehog so serious, please. And keep that in mind with the rest of my commentary for this and other Sonic games. Thank you! Hello and welcome back to the Sonic Heroes commentary. That still feels weird to say. Last time we started off the Team Rose storyline, which as a reminder is the only storyline that I will be doing besides the last story for this commentary. If you would like to see me do Team Sonic and Team Chaotix as well, without commentary, just look up my long play. And I threw in the cutscenes for Team Dark at the very least, so even the playthrough without commentary is abridged, but that is for your sake and for your convenience. You are welcome. If you want to gripe about it in the comments, you are more than welcome to. Just please don't dislike the video because of that particular omission, because there are more people that appreciate that than not. So, at any rate, on this part, we will be continuing with the Team Rose story. We get to, like, the middle of the 5th set of stages, I think. Something like that. We'll see it when it comes. Anyway, this is Bingo Highway, which is the second act of the casino part, the casino stages for Sonic Heroes. I kind of like this one more, even though it actually has kind of an annoying gimmick with the where you have to get the numbers and match the bingo. But I'm pretty sure that's optional and you only get rings for it. So it's not something you have to do. But there is a risk of some of your characters falling off on some of the later parts of the stage. Maybe not so much here with Team Rose since it's the shorter version of the stage, but definitely in the other stories that can be a bit problematic. So going back to the whole only doing commentary for some of the game thing, I didn't really talk about this much in the last part, but I figured this part would be a good time to talk about, is how other people have attempted to do a commentary for Sonic Heroes, or Let's Play, or whatever you want to call it. And I can only think of one other major example off the top of my head. I wanted to say there was two, but no, I really can only remember the one, and that's you might know it. You might know of this guy, the Great Clement, also known as Clement J64, formerly known as Clement J64-2. Why the 2? Doesn't really matter now. Anyway. Yeah, so he did a Sonic Heroes Let's Play ages ago, and there was quite an interesting controversy with that, where it was pretty much guaranteed that he was going to at least do commentary for Team Sonic and Team Chaotix, as well as the last story, obviously. The reasoning for this is because Team Sonic is quote-unquote the main story of Sonic Heroes, which I do agree with. Even if Team Rose is arguably the shortest and thus the most fun to go through, I do agree that Team Sonic is the main story. I mean, obviously, you're playing as the main character. And Team Chaotix because the missions have different objectives for the most part, which is also true. And this is also kind of their first real introduction in the series, because the last time we saw characters from Team Chaotix was in an obscure Sega 32X. It's another obscure add-on, like the Sega CD I mentioned in the last part. Yeah, they made a game called Knuckles Chaotix. Probably didn't sell very well. It's probably not very well known outside of the extremely devoted Sonic fanbase. So, for a lot of people, all of the characters like Vector, Espio, and Charmy were brand spanking new. I mean, they even got redesigns, you know, to go along with it, so they may as well be new, if you know what I mean. But that's not my point. The point is, Clement only really promised to do commentary for those two stories and the last story. I can't remember if he was going to abridge Team Rose and Team Dark originally. What he wound up doing is that he did wind up doing a playthrough for Team Rose, but he only did it on the stipulation that he was able to do it with his friends. And as a result, it kind of made it different because he would like swap the controller with his friends and all that stuff, so... And it was so short that, you know, barely justified it. The Team Rose edition wasn't the issue, though. The issue was the whole controversy surrounding the Team Dark playthrough. It was like, he did a poll, I think, and the poll implied that people did want to see him go through the entire story with commentary. So he attempted to do this, and he actually did upload the first part of this. And I remember watching it and thinking, oh man, he's definitely stretching himself thin, to be sure, when I was watching it. I mean, it didn't seem bad. It seemed like his usual fare, but it did seem like he was stretching himself thin a bit, which, after doing 2 solo commentaries and 1 with his friends, which probably doesn't really count in this argument, it definitely was and still is a bonus to that playthrough that he did. But the Team Dark thing, after 1 part, you could tell he probably wasn't going to be able to stomach wringing out any more interesting commentary from Sonic Heroes. I remember he was starting to run pretty thin near the end of the Chaotix playthrough, actually, because, yeah, there's some stuff you could talk about with Knuckles Chaotix, the original game. You could talk about the characters. You could talk about the different missions and how annoying some of them may be. I'm thinking about going into more detail about that in the next part, where it might be a little more topical. He was stretching himself thin, and honestly, if you can't justify doing a full commentary of a game, or even an abridged one, in a way like I'm doing, where I'm only doing 1 story in the last story, if you're not gonna be able to have fun and be able to give good commentary the whole way through, you know, may as well just not do it. I mean, some people might think otherwise, or if you should probably try to do something like a review or a retrospective or something, rather than trying to do a full-on commentary. I do find that sometimes it can be easier to go through a larger game with a co-commentator or something like that, but it's not impossible. After all, another Let's Player known as Chugga Conroy pretty much does the majority of his stuff solo anyway, so, you know. But the issue is, you know, Team Dark was really, it's the longest story, and he was already stretching himself thin after 1 part, which I wouldn't be surprised if the first part was just Seaside Hill and Ocean Palace and the boss, maybe Grand Metropolis at most. And even that might be pushing it. Also, yes, Big the Cat is still obsessed with Froggy. Froggy! I don't know. That's just hilarious to me. But what he wound up doing is that he took down the video. He realized that he wasn't going to be able to give a good commentary for the rest of Team Dark. So he took down the video and he re-uploaded it, but this time it was basically just the entire thing abridged in 1 part. He basically just did this commentary for the first stage, and then after that he pretty much just left in all of the cutscenes, like the CG ones and the in-game cutscenes, without his commentary, which, honestly, while I know a lot of people were mad about this, I was one of those people that when I watched it, I understood. So it didn't frustrate me that he wound up doing what he did, but I do feel like he should have stuck to his guns, that if he didn't want to do a full commentary for it, he shouldn't have done a poll to begin with. Because, you know, sometimes people that watch your videos can give good suggestions. Sometimes, you know, they may be pretty ignorant on something like this, so they'll give a suggestion thinking it's good on paper, but in execution, it doesn't hold up. So when I was thinking about doing a commentary for Sonic Heroes, I most definitely had the Great Clement's playthrough in mind. And I think for a while I was thinking about doing Team Sonic and the last story. But I decided to do the Team Rose one because it's the shortest, and also because I actually yanked this out of the main playthrough in my archive. Like in my archive, I had Team Rose, Team Chaos, and Team Sonic in the folder with Team Dark cutscenes of its own video. But now what I did is that I left the Team Rose and Team Dark cutscenes in there, and I yanked the Team Rose playthrough out to use this for a commentary. Because, as I said at the start in part 1, a commentary is better than none at all. And like I said, it was either minimalistic Sonic Heroes commentary or no commentary at all. And I'm sure a lot of you would agree that something is better than nothing. And it's weird that I'm doing this before the adventure games, but I do think that doing a shorter game before some longer games is better. And the adventure games are actually some of the longer 3D Sonic games in the series, especially of the ones I want to do commentary for. Once I get those out of the way, any other Sonic game I might be interested in doing would probably be closer to this playthrough's length, rather than Adventure 1, which is going to be about 11 parts, and Adventure 2, which is going to be about 9 parts. Barring any last-minute edits or changes notwithstanding. I doubt I will, but it's worth mentioning. But anyway, we're moving on to Rail Canyon. I've said about all I needed to say about the whole Clement situation with his Sonic Heroes playthrough. I did want to bring that up for context for people, because, you know, never know, some of you watching this might have actually seen that playthrough years ago, and you might remember that little mini controversy that happened. Of course, nowadays, I'm sure people watching his playthrough don't really mind it, and, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people just watched his Team Sonic portion and just skipped straight to the end. You'd be surprised how many people find a series of videos, they might watch the first part, and then they'll skip right to the last part. Which is why you'll notice that sometimes the first and the final part of the series have the most views. With exceptions like, I don't know, putting Shadow the Hedgehog in a thumbnail and that'll magically make it have more views somehow. I find that pretty funny, actually. That his theory actually held water. But anyways, Rail Canyon, pretty good set of stages here. I really like the music. Well, I like the music in the second act of Rail Canyon, Bullet Station. Really good music right there. Sonic Heroes is actually pretty full of good music, honestly. I don't think I've had much of an opportunity to say, but I generally like the soundtrack of Sonic Heroes a good bit. Probably not as much as the adventure games, unfortunately, because I feel like those games had a greater variety of music. Like, I know Sonic Adventure 1 had a really healthy dose of jazz. I do like me some jazz, don't get me wrong. I also like my rock music and all that too, but if that's like the only genre of music, then I'm sorry, but I'm gonna give points to a soundtrack that has greater variety of good songs than if it was just one genre of good songs, you know what I mean? But that's always one thing that people can look forward to when it comes to Sonic games. Even if you may not think the Sonic games themselves are all that great. Generally, most people will agree that at least the soundtracks are almost always pretty good, so... Maybe some people are fans of the Sonic series just for the music. Maybe they're like, I'll skip the game release and I'll just buy the soundtrack on CD or something like that. But nowadays, I guess it would be iTunes or something like that. I don't... Thing about it is, I don't really buy music like that. If I want to listen to music, I just extract an MP3 from video or CD, well, a CD that I didn't buy, but something like, you know, I got this Ocarina of Time CD from Club Nintendo years ago, and I extracted all of the music files from it to my computer because it's totally okay to do that. I didn't pay for it, so, you know, that's a thing. That's the thingamabob. Yes, indeed. But yeah, generally I like to listen to music, you know, sometimes here and there, but I'm not super enthusiastic about it, I would say. But yeah, Sonic games tend to have really great soundtracks, especially ones that... Why am I getting hung up on this rail? Like, oh my god. Yeah, it's like I said, Sonic Heroes is not a perfectly made game. I'd argue it's definitely inferior to the adventure games a bit in terms of the glitchiness factor. Still nowhere near as bad as Sonic 06 though. It's just really mostly minor stuff, honestly. But I mean, that's the first real craziness I saw so far in this playthrough that I've been commentating over. I haven't missed anything else. I've been keeping my eyes glued on the screen the whole time giving commentary. And yeah, this game is not as bad as Sonic 06. Maybe the PS2 version of this and Shadow the Hedgehog, but GameCube version and Xbox versions, yeah, those are the ones you want to play. Sorry to all you European fans who may or may not have a raging hate for the GameCube or something. I don't know. I'm just letting you know, if you played Sonic Heroes on PS2, you weren't playing this game at its best. Not saying that the game at its best is a masterpiece, but still, if you're going to give honest criticism to a game, give criticism to a game when it's at its best.
We're like awesome! Something weird in there. Cheese, you'll be reunited with Chocola very soon.
Froggy too?
Let's get him before Sonic does. Then he'll be head over heels for me.
Ready, all cannon!
Froggy! We're all about that Froggy. Hey, Amy, are we gonna rescue Froggy after we defeat this giant bird? I don't know, maybe. Anyway, this is the Egg Albatross. I didn't really talk about the other variation of this boss, but I'm gonna talk about this one because this thing takes a while to take down. Also, didn't really talk about the boss for the casino level because it was basically just a giant gauntlet of enemies, so wasn't really anything worth to talk about there, especially with Team Rose. They actually get a reduced amount of enemies to fight in the Robot Storm fight. There's actually going to be another one coming up later. There's 2 of those, there's 2 rival fights, and 2 fights with the Egg, Bird, Albatross, Hawk, whatever you want to call it. And then there's the quote-unquote final boss of each story, which is unique, but I mean, each character fights the same one, but I'm talking about it's not a retread of the other 3 types of bosses you fight throughout Sonic Heroes, any of the stories, I mean. And you'll see what I mean in the next part, because the next part isn't the finale of the entire commentary, it's just the finale of the Team Rose story. But Egg Albatross takes quite a while to knock down, a lot of hit points, but when you get it down to the last phase, it's literally just the Egg Hawk all over again, which is kind of funny, but all I can really say about this and the Egg Hawk, just spam the homing attack. It's a little bit harder to do that consistently with the Egg Albatross variation, but still not really all that difficult. Do be careful though, because most of the times that I lose on this fight is because I fall down a pit while I'm in the middle of trying to homing attack the Egg Albatross, and sometimes your homing attack won't go all the way through because of the way everybody's moving, which is understandable. And I finished with a Team Blast because, well, that's appropriate, isn't it? Is it not? Anyway, there's going to be a fairly important cutscene that I don't want to talk over coming up, so sit back and enjoy the plot twist with this one. When I first saw this, I thought this was pretty mind-blowing.
Hey, it's just a stupid copy.
Froggy, where are you? Let's go home.
Cheese, what's wrong? Oh, no. Yes. A chow nappy. But why? I'm not really sure, but betcha Dr. Eggman has something to do with it, and we're not gonna let him get away with it. Come on, let's get out of here.
Okie dokie.
Oh, huh. I guess the twist actually doesn't show up in Team Rose's version of the cutscene. Well, that'll make the last story more surprising for all of you watching, I guess, of course. I assume a lot of people watching this actually have already played or seen the game before, so you probably already know what's coming, but might still be a surprise for some people. I actually don't mind that. I assume that played out the same for all the characters, more or less, but evidently Team Rose really is Sonic Heroes Abridged, and I like it for that. Oh, wow. Ooh, well, that was a pretty nice shortcut I did there, making this short playthrough even shorter. So, Frog Forest, I really like the music track for Frog Forest. This is my favorite set of levels in Sonic Heroes, bar none. I remember when I first got to this level on my first playthrough of Sonic Heroes, it kind of blew me away a little bit. For some reason, I didn't see it coming. And yeah, we're in Frog Forest, and we're playing as Big. Well, sorta. It's funny, I know. Hey, are we gonna find Froggy in Frog Forest? Well, technically no, because this isn't the last stage. There's still like 2 more stages with two levels each, or 2 zones with 2 levels each. However you wanna go about it, but yeah. And Frog Forest with Team Roses, of course, are pretty brisk, pretty short level, pretty enjoyable. Again, I really like the music track for this. Going back to the music discussion, I probably need to re-download the song for this, actually. I have some of the music for Sonic Heroes, but I don't have this one when I really should, because it's like one of my favorite music tracks in the entire Sonic series. Frog Forest. I mean, yeah. It's like so peaceful, and yet kind of energetic at the same time. It's really hard to get that mixture right, you know? Oh, another minor annoying thing, too, is that Amy's tornado ability, all of the speed characters can do this. Amy's tornado ability is like a projectile, so sometimes when you want to make something spin and you want to grab onto it, it can be pretty tedious because it might actually be out of your reach by the time you get to it. It's not a big deal, it's just the kind of thing that makes it a little annoying. I guess that's kind of a point against Team Rose, but again, this playthrough is so short. And we're at the end of the stage, more or less. We're going to get one more Team Blast. One more. There you go. Anyway, that's going to end this part. We're a little more than halfway through because the last part is going to be really short. Hope you all enjoyed. Next time, we continue on into Frog Forest with the second act and the rest of Team Rose. See you then. Watch out for Froggy.